All right, we're back solo. Lina, my girlfriend, will be joining us shortly. And I will wait patiently for anyone to show up. I think people are here, but it just says nobody. Now there's one. I'm here to talk about... Shay, will you leave me alone and I'll come back and get you? Hi, everybody. Working out some of the kinks of a relatively intimate Facebook Live. I'm in London right now. That was my girlfriend, Lina. I'm staying with her at the moment. And I am here to talk about being an empath and some of the basic things we can do to protect ourselves as empaths so that we can make sure that we stay clear of other people's energies when we don't want them. Hi, Shoshana. And this is all in anticipation of my upcoming class through the Evolver Learning Labs called How to Thrive as an Empath. And you can learn more about the class and sign up for it through Evolver Learning Labs. And as you can see in the caption, if you sign up during this live stream, you will get 20% off using the code EmpathLive20. So just click on the bit.ly and use that code, and you can join my class starting this Tuesday at a discount. What I'm going to talk about today, I am going to talk about in much greater detail in the class, but we'll start with the very, very basics of what I personally do to protect myself from other people's energy as a highly sensitive person. The first thing I do, and this is just me, is I wear this necklace. I have no stake in this necklace. This is not product placement. I won't get a penny if you order it. I just happen to love it. I wear it all the time. It's called an E-Force Plus. When I wear it, I feel more grounded and more protected. A lot of people have a similar relationship to onyx or to amethyst or to whatever crystal appeals to you that gives you that feeling of safety. Nobody can tell you what's going to feel good. There's a propensity of people to say, this works for me, so you have to use it. I don't like that approach. This works for me, but you do not have to use it. You can use whatever works for you. But this is the E-Force Plus, and it really works for me. It was $175, so pricey, but for me, quite worth it. Beyond crystals, another thing that you can do to protect yourself, really basic and really important, is learning how to put yourself in a bubble. So let's say, for instance, you're in a movie theater, and somebody sits down next to you, and they're filled with anxiety. Not only can you see that they're fidgeting, you can actually feel their anxiety in your chest. This is a basic and common experience as an empath. What do you do when you feel somebody's anxiety in your chest? Well, what I do is first, I acknowledge that I'm feeling it. That's key. If you don't acknowledge that you're feeling it, you're going to push it away, and it's going to come back to you even stronger. So first, even saying to yourself in words, I am feeling the anxiety of the person next to me, will bring a subtle level of calm to the experience. Second, I imagine in my mind's eye a bubble surrounding me and separating me from this hypothetical person next to me at the movie theater. Literally, I am seeing in my mind's eye a translucent bubble. It looks a little bit like a bubble of soap when you blow a big bubble of soap and you surround yourself with it. That's the image that works for me. I would ask you to close your eyes and imagine a bubble that protects you from the energy of others. And what does that bubble look like for you? Does it look like that soap? Does it look white? Does it look like mist? And whatever it looks like for you is absolutely perfect. That's a key aspect of self-protection. Another thing that many people do that doesn't work for me, but I've heard does work for a lot of people, is to imagine that they are surrounded by divine white light. You can say an incantation like, I hereby surround myself with divine white light. And as I say that, right now even, I can feel that divine white light surrounding me. It's a soft, feminine, protective, embryonic mist that creates a layer of safety and security in my own body and makes it harder for the energies of others to enter my space. Does anybody have any questions about this kind of basic self-protection? I am seeing a lot of comments, but I'm not going to go back and read them. I'm just going to read the ones you type now. Anybody? Or comments about the self-protection? I will patiently wait. What was the pendant? This is what I personally wear. This is some sort of sacred geometry that I'm gathering the 200 people in this room digitally probably know better than me. It's called an E-Force Plus. I find it very useful. I feel very protected by it. It works for me. If you want to do something cheaper that works for a lot of people, black onyx can be really powerful. Do you see or feel that bubble all of the time, or just as you create it? I definitely do it only as I create it. I am not constantly walking around with a bubble. I use it on an as-needed basis. Did you learn about the light or the bubble, or it came to you and you needed it? The light I learned about, I believe I learned about both of them. I'm not sure where. I think I was probably using something like a bubble, but I hadn't used the visualization technique. So I was imagining only energetically, but not visually, some kind of protective shield. Anyone who's been on a subway or in a crowded space when they feel overwhelmed probably does something similar. They push their energy out to protect themselves. I probably learned that one could do that visually. Can you protect someone else? I have no idea, Maha. That's a great question. I've never tried it. But I suggest you try it. Any thoughts or advice on self-protection in a bedroom, either from absorbing a neighbor's energy or spouse, children while sleeping? Well, that's a great question. And Krista, in a minute, I'll call in my girlfriend with whom I sleep in a bed, and we can talk about that concretely. What does it need to be? Why does it need to be a color? No, it definitely does not need to be a color. What I'm going to be going over in great detail in my class and inviting people to ask about what their particular techniques are is that I'm personally a big believer in what works for you works. I have spent more time than I need trying to figure out what works for other people and then adapting it, only to discover that it's not true for me. So I offer you my techniques or technologies that work for me, and then I offer you some that don't work for me that are useful for other people, and I believe that they're useful for them. And I invite you to try stuff out and go, oh, this works for me. I'm going to adopt it. And be really careful about automatically integrating other people's techniques or projecting your techniques onto others. Working in the customer service industry, picking up energy is almost impossible as an empath. What is another way to protect yourself on a daily basis? Customer service. Okay. Another thing that I'm going to cover in depth in my course that I'll just touch on now, that I find is more powerful than self-protection. More powerful to me than protecting yourself is awareness. So let's say you're on the phone doing customer service and somebody's being extremely passive aggressive and you feel this edge in their voice that's literally, I can feel an edge in somebody's voice sometimes cutting into my body, slicing up my body. The trick, the super our trick is to embrace that. So instead of going, oh, I don't like this, I'm pushing it away, that definitely doesn't work. Better, protect yourself with a shield. But ultimately more effective, albeit more difficult to implement, is to integrate. Okay, this person's cutting me. I feel that. I feel that. That's what's happening. And if you do that more and more, you eventually let go of your need to disconnect, and it can flow through you. So I would propose on an easier level, the more aware you are of your own physical and emotional states on a regular basis, the easier it will be to integrate other people's emotional and physical states. How would you go about protecting yourself from becoming anxious with a lot of sounds, lights, and people? I work in surgery and often get anxious by the stimulation. I think just tuning into you, Ashley, a lot of this is about, especially if you're constantly in a place you need to be professionally, sometimes the most obvious thing is the most powerful. Separate yourself. 10 minutes alone can make a whole, especially when it's surgery, when it's serious business, can make whatever you're doing, can make you that much better at whatever you're doing. So if you tend to get stressed by being overstimulated, take breaks. Allow your nervous system to reset. Close off. Go outside. Take a walk. Tell everybody you're taking 5. What about someone with bipolar disorder? How do you protect from someone with that? Ups and downs, depressives. Well, Zhao, if I pronounced your name right, these are the kinds of questions we're going to delve into in much greater detail, and these are great questions. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer that. So I'm going to give you an overview of what we're going to cover in the course. There are many different levels of protection. The first is the simplest that I just described. You sit next to somebody in a movie theater, you feel their anxiety. What do you do about that? That's relatively straightforward. Then there's something more complicated when you're talking about being in a relationship. Let's say you're in a relationship with somebody who's very emotionally even keeled and safe. That's easier anyway. But even then, you're going to pick up on their feelings of sadness or anger or frustration or joy. How do you handle that? Do you embrace the joy? Does that mean then you embrace their sadness? What's the healthy relationship between your feelings and their feelings? And then even more advanced down the line is what to do if you're in a deeply integrated relationship with somebody who has extreme highs and extreme lows. How do you handle somebody with bipolar disorder? Or even more difficult than handling somebody with bipolar disorder, somebody who has more of a borderline personality disorder, or narcissistic personality disorder. How do you, as an empath, handle that? And that is something that I won't be able to cover here in this brief Facebook Live, and that I would invite you onto the course to cover in greater detail. And I would also say that there's a book by a woman named Judith Orloff called The Empath Survival Guide, and she goes through this kind of stuff in detail. Hi, David. Are electromagnetic fields in my house affecting my health or my intuitive abilities? Christine, that's a great question. I'm not the one to answer that. My intuition is probably, but I also don't want to cause you anxiety. And the anxiety that one might be caused by worrying about it might be worse than the effect of the electromagnetic field. And I also don't know. How do you know the difference between other people's emotions and yours? Mary Florio, that is the ultimate question. How do you know the difference? And this is something we'll be covering in the course as well. And I would say as you're starting on the journey of discovering your empathic abilities and your own sensitivity, you don't know the difference between your feelings and yours, and that's totally okay. And then as you continue to develop, you tune more and more into your own feelings. So I would say the more I'm familiar with my own feelings, the more I'm capable of distinguishing my feelings from those of another person. So my sadness has a different flavor than another's sadness. So as I feel my sadness and then I feel another's sadness, I can distinguish. Then there are feelings that I feel in my body that I've never had in my own life. that I can't relate to. For instance, there are feelings of bliss in that I've experienced through women that are not feelings that I've ever had myself. I've also experienced real self-loathing in people that I've never had toward my own self. So some feelings are so different from anything I experienced, I know them immediately. That's not me. But then when feelings are similar to me, well then it's a matter of shade. Tell someone mistakes my empathy for genuine romantic love. I don't know. I like that question. Tell someone mistakes my... Jerry, can you rewrite that question? I'm having trouble. Oh, wow. Aline Ryan, as I go to type questions, you either answer or I already know the answers for me, so I take it. I just need to listen and know I'm not alone. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. How do you deal with people who judgers that kind of negative energy? How do I deal? I'll answer that, and I won't answer how you can deal because that's a really deep question. How do I deal with judgers? How do I deal with judgers? I feel the pain that their judgment creates in me. That's how I deal with judgers. And eventually that pain releases, and then I see their judgment as self-judgment, and I have compassion for it. And not the kind of compassion that people who study spirituality claim to have, because we all know we should have compassion for haters, but actually embodied compassion because I've processed my own pain at being judged. Hi, David. Do you use HD frequencies often to interrupt your states? No. I would love to learn this stuff. Malaika, I don't know anything about that. Yes. Michelle, dealing with bipolar, borderline disorders and others, especially borderline to me is the hardest because the emotions are so difficult. They're so believed and so difficult to work with if you're not a professional. And even if you're a professional, it's a real challenge. So I think what I want to say about dealing with people who have extreme personality disorders is how important it is to have compassion for yourself, because this is extremely difficult. I don't think no one I know has mastered the art of working with people with borderline personality disorder, let alone being in a deep relationship with them or having them as your parent or brother or sister. So as you struggle with that, have compassion for that struggle. This is really, really hard. Do you ever feel drained from feeling other people's energy? I feel like being around people drains me. I absolutely feel drained by being around other people's energy all the time. Certain people drain me more than others. How to stay strong in the most darkest of times in your life or career? Why stay strong? Maybe just collapse and feel shitty. David, do empaths get attacked by people because they are a catalyst for others' emotional releases? I feel like people with emotional disorders tend to attack. Do empaths get attacked by people because they are catalysts for others' emotional releases? Christine, I want to say yes and no. The word attack has a level of judgment. I would say empaths are unconsciously often saying, I am here to feel your feelings. Here I am. I feel your feelings and I invite you to give them to me. We don't know that we're saying that, but we often are communicating that subtextually. So people who have emotions they can't handle go, yes, here, you can have my emotions. And then we feel attacked. A deeper way of looking at it, the way I like to look at it, is shamanically. The shaman deliberately, consciously, in tribal communities, traditionally and embodied in our own history, in our DNA, the shaman says, I hereby take on your experience with you so that we can reintegrate you together. This is more than your nervous system can handle, and I, as the shaman, will handle it with you. That takes place within a sacred space, a ritualistic space. We've replaced the shamanic ritualistic space that is the natural space of empaths with the sterile, emotionally dead space of Western medicine. And what we're seeing now, culturally, is a move back into the sacred and into embodied spirituality. So maybe what you might be saying on a deeper level is, how can I embody my shamanic abilities in a way that feels safe for me? And the answer to that is to do it consciously and ritualistically. So I am hereby using my ability to tune into and or take over or take on your emotions in a way that is of service to you and in a way that I can handle. And in so doing, you then can create a boundary and say, now my office is closed. Christine, I hope you like that answer. That was as deep as I could go. Okay. I'm going to answer one more question, and then I'm going to see if my girlfriend wants to join, if she has forgiven me for taking over this stream. She wanted to come in earlier. I tend to want to get close to everyone I think is kind, but find I have to accept being shut out of some people's lives and let into others. Maybe as an empath, my urge to reach out emotionally, that's hard. Any personal experience? I'm going to think. What's coming to me, Tiffany? What's coming to me, Tiffany, is the power of gratitude for those people who can meet you where you are. When you feel shut out of certain relationships and invited into others, we tend to focus on where we're shut out of instead of appreciating where we are. And so you can say, oh, why can't I go deeper where I want to go deeper here? And that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but I'm giving you another option to say, wow, this person really is meeting me where I want to be met, and that's amazing, and how grateful I can be to this person for meeting me there, and how grateful I can be that this person exists. And when you do that, you need the other people less, and more people that you're willing to meet or are willing to meet you will appear. Okay, I'm going to answer these two questions about releasing people's emotions, but I also want to say, before I bring in my girlfriend, if she's still available, that these are all things we're going to cover in much greater detail, step at a time. I'm just doing like the surface. So again, to promote this class that Evolver is doing with me, just click on the bit.ly link and enter Empath Live 20 for 20% off. That's taking place while we're doing the live stream. Lina, do you want to join me? Okay, my girlfriend is going to join, and then we can take questions about 2 minutes. She's going to join in 2 minutes, and then we can take questions about being an empath in a relationship. Okay, Maha, can we release other people's emotions? I sometimes have very, very strong reactions, crying and growing tasty until I release something from myself that I feel wasn't mine in the first place. Yes, we can release other people's emotions. I'm going to cover that in great detail, and it is super important. So there's protection, where you block yourself from experiencing other people's emotions. There's awareness, where you accept that you're feeling other people's emotions and you're willing to integrate them. And then there's releasing, where you have them in your body and now it's time to let them go. One thing you can do to let them go is to literally say, I hereby give back the emotions or energy of Jim. I made Jim up. I envision Jim's energy leaving my body and going back to Jim. And then I envision Jim taking the energy from me. So Jim, I hereby send you everything that is not mine, that belongs to you, back to you. And I invite you to take it back. And then Jim will take it back. If Jim doesn't take it back, you can ask Jim, why aren't you taking it back? And he might say something that's really insightful and helpful to you. So that's one really good way of releasing somebody's specifics energy from you. And you'll feel this in your body. This is not abstract mumbo-jumbo spiritual woo-woo junk. This is for real stuff, that when you do this, you will feel a physiological difference. If you don't feel a physiological difference, then you need to try something else, and we'll cover those other options.
Hi.
This is my girlfriend, Lina.
Hello.
We are in London at her flat. And
Do we say apartment?
well, we say in America, we say apartment. And we thought it might be fun to go a little more intimate. I can't get the camera right.
It's okay.
And talk about
Help you.
being an empath in a relationship, since Lina and I do some work on that. together.
It's a little weird. Maybe you move that way.
Okay. Lina's also a photographer, a famous photographer, extremely talented. Lina Shanius is her name. Any questions about being an empath in a relationship? Hi, Lina. What options does a parent have?
About to spell my name.
You did a good job, Geraldine, with the name.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions about being an empath in a relationship? Well, Lina, what's it like for you to have me feel your feelings sometimes?
Sometimes he's very sensitive to my mood.
He being me.
Yes, you. Should I speak to you or to the audience?
Oh, you can speak to the audience or me as you like.
Sometimes you are very sensitive to my moods. And that's sometimes a little difficult for me. And then sometimes I expect you to be more sensitive because you have this ability. And then you're not, and that's also a bit frustrating. So those are the negative things.
That was interesting.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No questions about, let's see.
Oh, there's lots of them.
Hi, Lina. Can you repeat the last thing you said? I don't know if I can.
Or you?
Sorry, Sigvart. No going back in time this time. Any questions? Sigvart. Lina is Swedish, by the way.
Yes.
So if you want to write something in Swedish, she'll be amused. Any questions about...
So impressed that everyone got my name right almost.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Anybody have any questions for...
There are lots of positive things too, but I'm kind of embarrassed to say them.
Oh, well, like what?
Just like you have good intuition, and that's good. I'm not very good on camera.
She's great on camera. Look how beautiful she is.
Thanks.
There
are no questions, they're just lots of hellos. No, there they are. Okay.
I'm interested to hear about how to protect ourselves and how you work to protect. Elias, I am eager to talk about that, and I will be talking about that in great detail in the class. And unfortunately, I've been covering that for the first half of this live, and now I'm going to focus on in a relationship because I'm here with my girlfriends. But I please invite you to sign up, and you can save 20% off the class if you sign up during this live stream. Okay, Sam Durango, how do I know if I'm with an empath?
Oh, how do you know?
How do you know? Well, Sam, that comes down to the question of what is an empath? And I define, because I feel like defining it, I define an empath as somebody who feels the emotions of other people in their bodies. That's my definition. So you can use my definition if it's useful to you, and ask your boyfriend or girlfriend, hey, when I feel sad, do you feel sad? When I feel happy, do you feel happy? And then you can also notice when you have a subtle shift in your emotions, like let's say you're on your phone and your girlfriend or boyfriend's in the room, and you read something that jars you, do they feel it? Are they jarred? Are they sensitive to those micro changes in your emotional state? And if they are, then they probably fit my definition of an empath. Because you said something about energy, and I sometimes like this person. How do you get a new partner to understand how easily you pick up on their feelings? It's a good question for you, Lina.
Isn't it a good question for you? Wait.
How do you get a new partner to understand how easily you pick up on their feelings? Susan, I want to just say...
Do you think I've understood this?
It took you a long time.
Yes.
How do you think I could have communicated to you better that I pick up on your feelings?
I don't think you started that early. Maybe you didn't... Did you? At what point did you start telling me?
A year ago?
Yeah. And I've known him 5.5 years, so...
How do you get a new partner to understand? Susan, if I may, you might tell them.
Yeah. Start with telling them.
Just start with saying, hey, I just want you to know that I really pick up on your feelings.
Yeah. And then give, trust that they're going to be careful with that and understanding, maybe. Give them, the chance to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. how do I know if I'm accurate? Christine, how do you know if you're accurate? That is something we'll be covering in the second half of the class, the third and fourth of our 4 sessions. And I know that I'm accurate about other people's emotions because I do readings and I tune into people. I share what it is I feel they're feeling. And in so sharing, I get feedback. Is this right? Is this wrong? Am I off? Am I on? And that's how I just get better. So
I guess I'm practicing with lots of people.
Yeah, and if you want to
feedback.
Yes. Yeah. And if you want to learn a little bit more about my work, you can always visit my website, www.empath.nyc.
Wait, someone's talking about Swedish people being scary?
People scared me because they would not make contact. Huh. How do you deal with being an empath? How do you deal with a partner when they conceal something?
Yeah.
How do I
talk about, maybe not about me, but no, you going where you want to go.
How do I deal with a partner when they conceal something?
But in the past, you had experiences, right?
Yeah. God, it's hard, That's a great question. I don't know how I deal with a partner when they conceal something. It seems like it's 2 separate questions because let's say you find something out about your partner that they are hiding. How do you deal with it is not really a question specific to an empath. An empath has access to a kind of information that other people may not have access to. How we make sense of or use that information is probably the same as anybody trying to figure out how to use information that they have that they wouldn't be expected to have. So I don't know if I have any special insight. I guess I would try to express to them what I know about them that they don't think I know if I thought that was of service to them or of service to me.
They might not like that, though.
Yeah, they might not like that.
Answer the Sweden question.
Have you been to Sweden? I've been to Sweden many times. The people scared me because they would not make contact.
I'm sorry. We're a bit reserved.
How long have we been together? We've been together on and off for 5.5 years. We were apart for a while in the middle. How do you deal with the lack of authenticity? I usually feel unsafe and want to stay away for a while. Well, Lina, Jordan, another Lina. Lina, lack of authenticity has been the most difficult thing for me to deal with on a regular basis as an empath. How do I deal with it? Well, I'll tell you how I used to deal with it. I used to rage against inauthenticity, hypocrisy, and fraudulence. Used to make me really angry. Probably was a large part of my depression. These are all ways that I used to deal with it. Now, I probably avoid inauthentic people more than I avoid any other kind of people. I have a particular aversion to inauthentic spiritual teachers. They drive me up the effing wall. So if somebody is proclaiming all sorts of love and light and I feel all sorts of anxiety underneath it, I go bananas. But in my personal daily life, if I were fully embodying all of the principles I'm working toward embodying, I think that I would feel the pain that underlies the authenticity and have compassion for it. Underneath inauthenticity is a deep, authentic need to be belonging, to be a part of a group, or to be seen in a certain way. And how can we have compassion for that need, even as it expresses itself in a way that drives people crazy?
Someone signed up?
Christine, I'm so grateful. Thank you. I am so happy to have sold a class.
Wait,
sorry, no offense. But do you think empaths suit being in relationships with other empaths? Maybe to have low-key crave someone less sensitive. Well, like expect your part. Okay. How do
Am I an empath? I don't identify as one.
I don't think you are.
No, I don't identify as one.
But I do think you're highly sensitive.
Okay.
So I think Lina is highly sensitive, but I wouldn't call her an empath. And I think I'm an empath who's probably highly sensitive, but not as sensitive as you are.
No, you're not.
So I'm probably more sensitive to the emotions of the people around me than Lina is. But Lina is probably more sensitive to stimuli and noise and light and energy than I am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
If we respond.
I don't know if I've ever been in a relationship with an empath. I'll tell you, I've had interesting encounters with empaths where I can see emotions circle back and forth and back and forth. And that would probably be a risk when two empaths are in a relationship.
Makes sense.
You're a lovely couple. Be honest but tactful. How do you stop yourself being affected by Lina's moods? Leanne, I do not stop myself from being affected by Lina's moods. I am affected by Lina's moods. So I would say there's an underlying assumption here in a lot of these questions that somehow we should be able to be complete, whole, and independent of the world without ever being affected by anybody else. And I am here to report that such a goal is impossible to attain. And were it possible to attain, I'm not sure it would be worth the attaining. We are built to work with the emotions of others in our bodies. And so the reason we are affected by other people's moods is because it can be of service to us and to them to be so affected. So I would want to rephrase the question, how do I work with Lina's moods? How do I work with the fact that I am affected by Lina's moods? How do we integrate that fact into the relationship? What do you think, Lina?
Yeah, you can answer. I don't know how you do it.
Well, do you think that's the right question?
For a while, you were walking around with a crystal protecting yourself from me, but that was a few years ago.
Really?
And I didn't like that so much.
Well, so there you have it.
So I don't know how you do it now.
Seems like the older I get, the harder it becomes.
I think Lina's moody.
Lina's a little moody, Christine. Would you call yourself moody?
No. Christine's right.
Can you be both highly sensitive and an empath? You absolutely can be. And I would say I am less sensitive than most empaths. And I'm also more extroverted than most empaths. But I'm more empathic than most people by a long shot. So there are people who are both highly sensitive and empathic. I am highly sensitive, but I'm not that highly sensitive. So yeah, they probably overlap a lot. Hello, thanks for your live. I've been told that I have an effect on people's emotions, and many times I will talk to someone and they tend to let me know a lot about themselves, which my sister witnesses and relays it to me often that I had such an effect.
I have this too.
Okay, I have been told that I have an effect on people's emotions.
Oh.
I would say you may or may not be an empath, Kathleen, from your question. The fact that people feel instantly comfortable talking to you suggests...
I have some
fear
in this.
Go.
It might be that you aren't that judgmental and that you're a good listener. Mm-hmm. And that automatically people will open up to you, no?
Yeah, exactly. It might be that you are empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
To be empathetic,
by not the same thing
by my definition, does not necessarily make you an empath.
No, you might not feel what they're feeling. You might just be
able to understand their experience easily.
Yeah, which might be even better sometimes when you listen to someone. Just, I don't know, you tell me.
Well, if we go into the definition of empathy, there are two kinds of empathy generally understood. There's affective empathy, AFF, affective empathy, or emotional empathy, where you feel what it's like to be somebody else. And then there's cognitive empathy, where you understand what it's like to be somebody else. They can work together, or they can also work separately. You might have cognitive empathy, so somebody comes to you and you immediately understand where they're coming from. Doesn't mean you're feeling their feelings, it just means you're getting where they're coming from, and thus they feel more comfortable. I am super sensitive and highly empathic. Help! I'm going to help you, Christine. I think you're the one who signed up for the course.
I think so too.
Okay, do you ever have moments where you have a breakdown, so to speak, just letting the emotions take over? I tend to do that on plant medicine. So I'm a big fan of ayahuasca and San Pedro. And recently I did an ayahuasca ceremony. And in that ceremony, I let all these emotions take over. The last time I was totally sober and I really let all my emotions take over, I had a breakdown, was a year ago. There might be something slightly gendered in this where I have trouble letting my emotions take me over. Or it might be that I'm actually doing a good job and I release things as they come. Lina, were you aware of David's empathic nature, and how did this make you feel as you were establishing your relationship?
I was not aware of it, but quite early on, you told me things that were very helpful to me. So he was, yeah.
How did you feel how did this make you feel as you were establishing a relationship?
I mean, I guess quite early on, you said you had a psychic ability, and then then it took like a few years, and you tried lots of different things, and then you landed in a certain empath.
Yeah.
I guess I thought it was a little weird at first.
Hello from Tulum. Oh, I love Tulum. I was there recently. Thanks for sharing your beings. This is a land of evolved humans where many have come to love and live in peace. Constantly, I, as a free single male, find myself in the middle of lovely, young, complex, intelligent couples. Oh my God, this is a novel.
This is a very long thing.
Okay, I'm going to get to the end. I keep playing with my inner child. I love myself and everything around.
Great.
Beautiful. Do you lead ayahuasca ceremonies? Christine, I do not lead ayahuasca ceremonies. I have struggled over my life as an empath as well as a medium. I regularly receive information. I've learned to be silent about most of it unless the other person has some insight on their own. It seems reasonable, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to remind everybody, as the comments seem to wind down and less people are watching, that right now you can sign up for this course that I'm teaching called How to Thrive as an Empath through the Evolver Learning Lab. The link is in the caption. It says to learn more and enroll, click here. Right now, while we are streaming, you can get 20% off the class by entering Empath Live 20.
Does that end after the live stream?
It will end after the live stream.
Okay.
Casey from Evolver will disable the link.
I see.
As promised.
Okay.
I'm going to be covering here are some of the things I'm going to be covering in the class that you can look forward to. One, the origin of the word empath. What does it actually mean? This is a question that nobody is talking about, even as the word gets bandied about everywhere over social media. Two, in detail, how to protect yourself as an empath from other people's energies when they are not wanted, and how to release these energies when you've absorbed them. Three, and more exciting for me, how to use your empathic abilities for your own good or for the good of others. And four, what is the role of an empath in society? What are we here for? Why have we been made with this ability? What is our highest ability to serve? And nice. How can we use this ability, and I mean this in a good word, selfishly? How do we use it? What's it good for? Okay, is this a live course? Thank you, Ashley, for asking that question. Ashley, it is 100% a live course, and it starts this Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. 4 classes, each an hour, with a Q&A afterward. I will be live the whole time, and if you happen to miss a course, you will be able to get a recording. Have you ever... Okay,
so it's like people are watching you speak.
Yeah, they're going to be watching
me. And then afterwards, you're doing a Q&A about the topic, or?
I'll be doing a presentation.
Yep.
And then I'll be integrating questions around that presentation, and then I'll be moving on to the next topic. And then at the end, we'll do more of a free-form Q&A.
Great.
Yeah. The first class is going to be primarily about what is an empath. And I'm going to give you just a trailer of that. I'm not going to go deep, just a trailer.
All right, I'm going to see what comes up.
This is content that I have seen nowhere. I am the sole person in the world of the internet to go into this content. This I'm going to talk about in our first class. This is a sci-fi magazine from the 50s. And in this sci-fi magazine from the 50s, you will find a short story called Empath. You can see it at the top right there, by a writer named J.T. McIntosh. And it is in this magazine, in 1956, that a Scottish writer named J.T. McIntosh coined the term empath and described what an empath meant to him. And I think there can be no more powerful way of understanding what an empath is than to go to the source. And what I think is most interesting about going to the source is that we discover that from the very beginning, an empath is a science fiction term. It's a supernatural ability. The second use of the word empath, and I'm going to tell you more in greater detail later, comes from this novelist, Marion Zimmer Bradley. It's only the second use of the word empath ever. So these are the first two uses of the word empath, science fiction. So as we think about the word empath as we use it today, like I feel other people's feelings, or I feel your pain, or I have a lot of empathy, it's worth remembering that we empaths have, from the beginning, if we identify this with this word, supernatural abilities. This is close to being a psychic, having a magic power, and I think it's cool if we own that. What do you think, Lina?
Yeah, own it.
Own it. So that's something I'm going to be talking about a lot in our first course, the joy of owning empathy, extreme empathy, or empathic abilities as something supernatural and powerful, and tracing that back to the origin of the word. And I have looked, my friends, all over the interwebs for anybody talking about this, and you will find it exactly nowhere. You will only find it on this class, which you will read, which you can sign up for right now for 20% off.
Should we say how much longer we're going to be on here and how much more time they have?
What do you mean? Oh, we're going to be on here. We're going to have 5 more minutes?
Yeah, so then
you have 5 more minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. You have 118 people. You have 5 minutes to sign up for the Evolver Learning Labs class that I'm teaching live.
Someone wants to see the second book again. I'm going to show it.
Okay.
You can listen.
5 more minutes, you can sign up, use Empath Live for 20% off. The course will be live.
Or is it this one?
Nope.
Why is it double?
This one.
Oh, it's a 2 book in one.
Yeah. The course will be live Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. All right, let's take a couple more questions. I always knew I had superpowers. That's what I think. Isn't that great to know? It's a superpower from its origin. What's the best way to help us empaths to communication and not be so sensitive with a potential partner who's hardcore and has a tough exterior? These questions are so layered. Gwen, you're asking so many questions in one. What's the best way to help us empaths to communicate and not be so sensitive with a potential partner who's hardcore? Okay, I'm going to answer this question generally.
I want to say that it's okay to be sensitive.
There you go.
Yeah. That's what you learned me.
That's what
me when we first met. That's what you taught me when we first met.
Yes.
That it's okay to be sensitive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's 2 strategies to being sensitive. One is running and running to figure out how to be harder and tougher and not be overwhelmed by things. I think on the whole, this strategy sucks. I prefer another strategy, and that's the strategy of embracing your sensitivity. I am sensitive. I am intuitive. I do feel what's going on in you on a deep level. How can I own that? Express that honestly. Set boundaries that work for me.
And it doesn't have to be a handicap. It could be a gift.
Exactly. Or, according to JT McIntosh, a superpower. Anna Lucia, wow, being an empath isn't a curse anymore. Yay.
Exactly.
Do you have a payment plan option for your course? Oh, Sky.
How does that work?
Does that just mean it's expensive for you? I hear you. Whew. Okay, Sky. I do not have a payment plan option for the course, but I want to ask about that if it's genuinely too expensive for you. Will you go on my website, empath.nyc, and will you send me an email reminding me of this, and I will see what I can do. There is no payment plan, but I want to allow people who can afford less to be able to do it, so I'll see if that's possible. David, did you cry a lot when you were a kid? No, I was emotionally shut off. So, has anyone else bought the course? I wonder. I know we sold one.
Do you need me here still?
No, you can go if you like. Do you want to go to sleep?
I can stay, or do you want to round it up without me? Maybe?
Yeah, we can round it up without you.
Okay. So it's lovely talking to you, and bye.
Thank you for being my guest star tonight, Lina.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Okay.
By the way, if anyone is a huge sci-fi nerd and watches Star Trek, we're going to talk about that. In 1968, there was an episode called The Empath on Star Trek, and I'm going to talk about the definition that show popularized. All right, final questions. Bye, Lina. Thank you, Christine. I have been a yoga teacher for 10 years, and it's part of my job to be empathetic. I used to really have a hard time with this until I realized I just needed to take much more time to myself and know how to deal with it all. Star Rickard, that is my gospel. Amen. Kathleen Bliss, I saw it, right? Isn't that interesting? We're going to talk about that episode in our first class. We're going to be covering the sci-fi origin of the word empath in these books. Also, how it was popularized by a writer named Joyce Musket in the 1968 episode of Star Trek called The Empath. And we're going to talk about its evolution over time into what we can actually consider it to mean. Last questions before we turn off the live stream and close out the discount code. Anybody? Oh. Losing people fast and furious here, down to 89, but I'm still happy to have all 89 of you watching. Thank you. Last questions? No? Okay, well, it got quiet. So, any homework? Oh, Christine, I love it. No, you have no homework coming into the first class. Show up. That's your homework. If you want to, you can prepare any questions or thoughts you have about being an empath. Or here's your homework if you want. You can check out my website and you can learn about me and see if there's anything that you want to ask me about or connect with me about. Thank you very much. Okay. Christelle Darn. Why, David, you're the best. Thank you. I saw. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you watching. Christine, thank you for signing up. Now is your last moment to enroll at the class, which starts this Tuesday. 4 classes, an hour each class with a half-an-hour Q&A to follow. I will be covering all things empath live, and I hope to see you there. Thank you so much. Have a nice night.